I talk a lot about breaking free from a life that no longer aligns with who you are, your higher self, what you dream, what you hope for, who you hope to love, how you hope to love yourself. And I stand firmly behind that if there's something that you can clear or leave behind to make space for something that does align more clearly with who you are, do it. Charge full speed ahead, or in some cases, back up as you need to, really far away if you need to. But what about the situations that you can't leave or you can't clear? Situations that cause you discomfort, anger, that don't align with your values, that don't align with how you want to structure your family life, your professional life, your fun life, meaning your hobbies and things like that. What about those situations where it's like, well, I can't back away because, although I value maybe my freedom or doing things a different, more compassionate way, I have to stay in this situation because I have no other choice but to get my paycheck from this place or to include this family member because if I walk away from this family member, then I also lose this family member and I'm not willing to lose that person. Or I've done everything in my power to change this situation structurally, be it at work or again in your family. Maybe you've had the hard conversations, but it's like there's just some external things that are sort of outside your control that just leave you feeling sometimes powerless, sometimes kind of at your wits' end, sometimes just you want to throw your hands in the air and you've done everything you can and you can't walk away. It doesn't feel right to walk away. So what do you do? And that's the focus of this episode. Sometimes you just have to hold it. And I'm not talking about urine because if you need to go to the bathroom, you should. That's actually another reason why I quit teaching is because I couldn't go to the bathroom when I needed to. I mean, like I developed kidney stones and stuff because like you can't leave a classroom full of kids unattended, but what do you do if you have to go? Pee your pants? I had a couple close calls. I'm going to be honest with you, a couple sneezes that turned out to be rather sinister and resulted in some emergency situations. So I'm not talking about pee, though I can relate to having to hold your urine. I'm talking about sometimes you just have to hold the feelings of discomfort, anger, and frustration, sadness. Sometimes you have to hold those things. And so the focus of this episode is going to be diving in more to that and how we can use it to our advantage, quite honestly, to be upfront about it. Like, yes, use it to our advantage and for the greater good, but also how it kind of contradicts some of the things that we're learning about therapy and things like that. So I'm going to talk about how sometimes you just have to hold your feelings of discomfort and how to do that in a way that is empowering. But I'm also going to talk about kind of the greater good and, you know, evolution and how we can use the things that are uncomfortable to create a kind of compassionate, more equal world. And some of that is inspired by my conversation with Graham Skidmore, which was just one episode ago. So you should definitely go listen to that if you haven't yet. Fascinating, fascinating conversation. And some of it is just through my own personal experiences, because obviously I'm going through this. I wouldn't be talking to you if I wasn't. I'm going through a season where it's like, I know there's a different kind of life that I want for myself and my family, but there's some things holding me back from it right now. Some things that are frustrating me. And so what do I do? So let's back up to how this kind of contradicts what we're learning about therapy. So like I think the way that the world is going and sometimes how boundaries are misconstrued, like I think for some people they interpret boundaries as anything that makes me uncomfortable or challenges maybe a toxic behavior that I have, I'm just going to avoid and set a boundary of, no, you can't go there with me. Or maybe people cut off people who maybe challenge them and some of their toxic behaviors. So that's one area where we are maybe taking therapy talk too far and maybe misunderstanding boundaries. Boundaries are something that are meant to be set to keep people safe and aligned with their values. But every single one of us needs to be challenged. That's how we grow. Every single one of us has toxic traits or bad habits that sometimes we're not aware of that we need to be called out on. So, first and foremost, don't confuse boundaries with growth. Okay. And we all need to work on accepting moments where we're being challenged on some of our selfish behaviors or toxic behaviors. And so, one of the first steps to getting more comfortable with discomfort and holding uncomfortable feelings is just being willing to accept feedback, even if we don't do so perfectly, being willing to go, okay, like really look at the person who's challenging you and go, what are their intentions here? Are they trying to help? Or are they trying to, help us connect better? Do they love me? And maybe this is just, an act that's done in love. And also just recognize that just because you have a trait that you need to work on or a habit that you need to work on doesn't mean that you suck. Like literally everybody has habits they need to work on. I'm really judgy. That's something I'm working on. It's a combination of how I was raised, but also just as somebody who works really hard on self-development, as somebody who's always reflecting and trying to improve themselves, sometimes what that can lead to is judgment for people who don't match my intensity with growth. And there's also a healthy form of judgment where we do need to hold some of it because judging things is also how we determine right from wrong, right? We have to make judgment calls all the time. So for me, I need to work on, sometimes being more compassionate and understanding of different ways of doing things, but also holding on to the judgmental parts of me that are needed to advance justice in the world. So the first part of this, sometimes you need to hold it, is recognizing, okay, am I just setting a boundary because I don't want to be challenged? And I want to continue with this habit and say the problem's with them and not me? Or, is it an actual healthy boundary where this person is a threat to your safety or your values, or they're maybe the toxic one? That is the case sometimes, but I think we need to focus on, is this really a boundary I need to set, or are they just saying something that maybe I don't like right away, or maybe, something I need to work on and it's hard to hear. And so I just kind of box it out. Because I think we would have a lot more healthy, empathetic human beings if we could be more open to challenges. Because it's also a trait of just this consumer culture. And by that, I just mean like scrolling, entertainment, dopamine hits. It's like so many of us are just looking for what will entertain us, what will numb us, what will distract us. And so we scroll and it's like, oh, that's not interesting. I can just move on to the next thing. And of course, it's impacting our relationships as well. Of course it is. Like, oh, this thing is hard, or it's not entertaining me, or it's not giving me that boost that I want. Because think about it, these algorithms of you scrolling and you clicking and you like, they're learning you and what you want to see. And so you're constantly being fed what you want to see and hear. And of course, that's going to translate to your relationships. Don't think that it doesn't. Remember, we're not supposed to be compartmentalized human beings. We're supposed to be connected, holistic. So don't think for a second that this private scrolling you're doing or this numbing is not going to translate into your relationships, because it absolutely does. Of course it does. If you allow yourself to be just pulled into what will entertain you, and if you're going to allow these machines to just feed you what you want, well, how the hell are you ever going to tolerate discomfort in the real world? How the hell are you ever going to tolerate growth when you're just being fed what you want to see and hear? So That's the first part of you have to hold it. You have to get comfortable with being challenged. And it sucks and it can look like arguments with people sometimes. It can be unpleasant reactions, defensive reactions, but you have to get used to holding that too and sitting with it beyond just the reaction. Maybe when things have calmed and you have a clearer sense of what's going on. Now, in terms of situations that you just feel like you can't change, right? So this is what I was talking about at the beginning of this video audio for those of you who are listening. When you're in a job, like let's say it's like, yeah, I really want to, quit this job and pursue, you know, painting or pursue teaching maybe, but I can't because I need this paycheck. Like I've literally done the math and there's nothing that I can do to pivot. So in situations like that where it's like, no, I have to be here, or, with family, and maybe it's like there's some family members who maybe have toxic traits who are stuck in or who are stuck in patterns that they are struggling to get out of, and you love them, or you love, other members of the family, and you can't just walk away or take some time and space. It's like, okay, how do I hold this then? If I'm in this and I'm committed to being in this, how do I hold this discomfort? Well, number one, accept that you don't have to do something with every single feeling that you have. And this is something I'm guilty of, especially because I am so reflective. It's like every single feeling I have, I'm like, well, okay, what do I do with this? I got to do something with it, like I got to do something with this anger. Like, especially if it's anger or frustration, I feel guilty sometimes for feeling that. So I'm like, I got to get rid of it. Okay, where's this meditation? Where's this journal? Where's this, conversation that I can have that'll maybe clear some of it? It's like, I gotta do something with it. I gotta get rid of it. And that's what a lot of us, I think, are conditioned to do is if there's a feeling that we have that we feel guilty about or that's uncomfortable, our first instinct is to take action on it. And sometimes that's appropriate, right? Because our feelings are there to spur us to action, right? Anger is crucial for social justice, So sometimes it is about action, but sometimes it's like, no, I've taken all the action I can. There's really nothing I can do. This feeling is still here. This situation is still here, and I'm committed to being in it. So I just have to hold it. Now, I'm not suggesting, you live with crippling anxiety or if it's unhealthy for your body, but what I am suggesting is that maybe you just have to accept that that's how you feel and allow yourself to go through some evolution with it, And by that, I mean, okay, I don't need to take action right this second. Like my boss really bothers me. They've got a lot of actual toxic traits that are creating a hostile work environment. I've gone to HR. I've talked it out with my family. I've tried confronting the boss directly, and change just isn't happening in the way that I thought it would, but I have to keep this job right now. Sometimes you just have to sit with that frustration and accept that it's how you feel. And, the things that can get you through that are sure looking for the bright spots, meaning like the people at work that that do bring you joy, looking for the connections that do bring you joy. It's like episode 3 of my podcast where I talk about the closet is cozy is an example of how I did this, where I found an ally at an old job that I had and spent as much time with her as possible. And the connection I felt with her helped me deal with some of these feelings of being, outcast or ignored or judged at work. So that's one way that you can hold it is you can hold the frustration, hold the feeling, and also at the same time find somebody who is your ally and hold on to those moments. Because that person's there, that person who makes you laugh, or that person who sees the same corruption that you do. Sometimes just being near them can help you. So that's how you get by with holding it in the short term, just accepting that, yep, this is always going to make me feel frustrated. But I have this person, I have this situation who's helping me bear it. And when I think back on my day, I can also remember the time I spent with them and know that I'm not alone. Same thing applies to your family. Like, let's say there's a family member who is caught up in a situation that's causing some problems in the rest of the family. Well, chances are, there's somebody else who understands, who sees, or there's somebody else who can give you wisdom and connection in the midst of it. Or even though this other person is caught up in this thing, you're still having moments with them where you're seeing their soul. And I don't want you to get pulled into a situation where you're giving, 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 and people aren't changing. But what I'm saying is, when you're with a person who's caught up in a negative pattern, don't underestimate your power to speak to their soul. Don't underestimate your power to witness them. Meaning, when you see glimpses of who they really are, their true strengths, their true mission. This is something I was talking to Graham about. So go listen, please. When you see glimpses of their divine nature, what they came here to do, regardless of all the world's corruption and distractions, when you see their soul, tell them. Because even if they don't, you know, gush and thank you in the moment, that hits a deep part of them. That's a seed. And it will grow. And all it takes is an extra 30 seconds of your time to say it. That sparks change, and that's part of holding it, is planting seeds and trusting that they're growing underneath the surface, even if you can't see the immediate results. And that's another way to hold feelings of discomfort, of like, I wish this family dynamic would change. I wish this person would get away from this thing so they can really focus on that thing. But in the meantime, because I can't speed up time or cut loose these external things, no matter how hard I've tried, I have to believe that my spirit, their spirit, these seeds that I'm planting are growing, even if it's beneath the surface. Believe in your power to witness people. This is something that keeps coming back to me, because I learned about this because of my husband, because he saw my soul. He witnessed me. I talk about him like he's the moon, and my husband has always been drawn to the moon. He loves the moon. He writes about the moon. He's working on a story about the moon right now. He's done paintings about the moon. Actually, I'm going to show you because it's really cute. Let me show you really quick. Okay, hold on. Those of you who are on audio, jump over to the video if you can. Okay, like my blurred background is working against me. So we'll try to do like a Star Wars thing here where like I slowly hold it up. Is it working? Oh, it's blurring it. Okay, let's see. Come on, technology, work with me here. Okay. You know what? Maybe what I'll do for the sake of the art is see if I can like unblur my background for just a second so you can see it. You know what? I actually don't know how to do that because speaking of my husband, he set me up for this, but yeah, it's just not going to work with me here. Maybe if I stand up and just put the picture, it will work. Those of you who know how to work with technology right now are probably just going crazy because you're like, oh yeah, all you have to do is click this thing or click that thing. And oh, here, I found it. There we go. Okay, so you can briefly get, insight into what's going on. So, see, isn't this cute? The light doesn't really want to work with me with, maybe that'll help. You get the idea. The part that the screen just doesn't want to show you is that down here where this little light is are two people looking at the moon. So anyway, it's really cute. Let's just go ahead and blur that again because sometimes things can be distracting. Thank you for your patience as I learned the video. And those of you who are on audio, if you want to witness even more awkward moments, you can click on over to the video and see that live. But my husband loves the moon. And I think part of the reason is because he has the spiritual gift of reflecting the sun, of reflecting the parts of people that shine, because something changed the day I met him and how he talked to me. I mean, it was literally day one. And the way that he talked to me, it was like my life pivoted for the better. All of a sudden, because he saw and knew how to reflect back the parts of me that shine, my soul, my literal light of my soul. Well, I wanted to get to know that better. And it's something that he continues to do. It's something that's never changed in our relationship, despite all the external things that have tried to destroy us and despite the daily responsibilities of life. He's always had this spiritual gift of speaking to my soul, of reflecting my soul back to me, just like the moon reflects the sun. And so I don't want you to underestimate your power to witness people, even people who are caught up in corrupt or all-consuming situations. Don't underestimate your power to plant a seed, because it will grow. Spiritual witnessing, meaning recognizing people's souls, goes so much deeper and farther than the evil, than the distractions. It is more powerful. It doesn't seem like it, right? Because the distractions the corrupt things often feel like they're winning, meaning the things that are preventing the people we love from living their best life or from really connecting or from building the life we want to build. They can seem all consuming. But the thing about seeds is that they last. They build roots. And so when they finally grow to the point where you can really see it, where you can recognize your impact, well, that's unshakable then. It takes time, but now you've grown this thing, this beauty, this creature, this light, this tree, this beautiful thing, whatever the thing is that you're growing, you've grown this thing that's there for the long haul. You've grown this thing that is built to survive and thrive, no matter the elements around it. That's the beauty of holding it, of holding the feelings of discomfort when it comes to your family dynamics or when it comes to your work dynamics. Now, you may not be able to change that business, and I promise you, you will get to a point where you can walk away. But in the meantime, while you are there, you are building a sort of resilience and strength in yourself where you're learning how to hold feelings of discomfort right alongside the life that you hope to continue to grow. And that kind of resilience that you build by learning to hold feelings, even if you can't act on them right away, that kind of resilience will help you to do greater things in the world. I'm going to get up one more time because I couldn't help but think of my book Sheltered and something I wrote in there, and I want to read it to you. So give me just a second. Don't store things under your bed. We're taught as kids that that's where the monsters live, but I think the monsters are really just like symptoms of our own disorganization and and discomfort, I guess. But anyway, okay. Yep, it's blurred again. I'm not going to put you through clicking the buttons, but anyway, I have my book Sheltered. And a quote that came to me when I wrote this, and this was my first novel, is that life's cruel events never take root so deeply that love cannot grow beside it. The more that I learn about this world, the more that I learn that it's not, our cycles of life are not just, oh, well, this was the time when I was just self-destructive, or this was the season of life where I was being fake, or this was the season of life where, you know, I was just wearing the mask. I think that although those might be the overarching themes, although that might be the common pattern, Our soul, our strength, our mission is always speaking to us. And our ability to weather the storm, to hold the discomfort of the things we can't change in the moment, is part of what helps us to evolve this world. And that leads me to kind of the second part of this episode and what I wanted to focus on. But before I say that, just know that like you have the ability to discern or to think about the things that maybe you need to change, or maybe you need to just hold for a while. Maybe you just need to accept that that's how you feel. And the growth that without taking immediate action and not dismissing it, because there is some that is healthy in and of itself, in that it's like, okay, I I can feel this. I can feel angry and frustrated and feel compassionate and empathetic. It reminds us that we contain multitudes, to quote Walt Whitman. I've always loved that. That dude is just wild. I got bored through most of his poetry. Like, I'm just going to be real about that, but that's a quote that has stuck with me. I'm large, I contain multitudes. Because we do. We're divine beings. We can hold a lot at once. And so accept that maybe you have a feeling that doesn't require immediate action. Maybe it's just some discomfort you're meant to hold for a while so that you can grow. Because every feeling we have, even if we don't take immediate action on it, can inspire growth. It can serve a purpose. And so, to bring me to, again, the second part of this, I just want to talk about evolution because it's something that keeps popping up as a theme for me lately. It's something that's just popping up in my mind and my conversations with my husband and the things that I watch and read. Evolution, 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 evolution. Ironically, it's something that I was taught to reject, right? Because some religions teach that it goes against God's will or, God's plan. And it's like, I do think that that belief system, that fear-based belief system of acknowledge, because I was afraid to believe in evolution when I was younger because it was like the ultimate sin of God's creation story, right? Which God's creation story actually makes no sense if you really look at it, but that's a conversation for another time. We're taught to fear evolution sometimes. And what I realized is that if we're afraid of evolution, well, then we're not going to want to evolve, right? Like if we're just reliant on some sort of God in the sky or Jesus Christ or, some sort of external deity to provide the growth that we need. Well, how motivated are we going to be to grow if the source of that growth comes from an external deity? Now, that being said, I absolutely believe in spirits, and that's going to be a part of this episode too. And I believe that they are influencing us, but they can't be the source. They can't be the heart. You have to believe that you have a divine consciousness that you are in control of if you're really going to grow and kind of let go of some of the shame that some religions teach and believe that, no, like, I'm an imperfect being, and that imperfection is also what creates growth and new life. Okay, so evolution. If you watch, any nature documentary, some of the first beings that evolve, to adapt and to create a thriving an environment where people can thrive, where their species can thrive, like when you look at beings that evolve, sometimes when they're the first, or sometimes, just evolution in general, it's goofy. It's goofy looking. Like if you look at, again, some of these things that are on these nature documentaries, animals, plants, it's like, what the fuck is that? I'm still watching the Americas documentary on Peacock. It's the one that's narrated by Tom Hanks. You should actually for sure watch it. It's actually a really well done documentary that doesn't just focus on death. A lot of the animal and nature documentaries that have come out lately just focus on creatures eating each other, and you fall in love with this cute little dinosaur or something, and then something eats it, and it's like, oh no, all right. If I wanted to watch murder porn, I would have turned on one of the 50 million savage, horrible I'm sorry I used the word savage. I shouldn't have used that because I know that sometimes is associated with some discrimination. So I apologize that I used that. It's come back in pop culture a little bit, so I slipped. So forgive me for that. Anyway, if I wanted to watch murder porn, I would watch one of the million just disgusting true crime documentaries that are available, which the fact that those are popping off is disgusting in and of itself, but that's a conversation for another day. The point is, the Americas documentary is really good. You should watch it if you have Peacock. But evolution is messy. It's goofy looking. It doesn't always make sense, but it is evolution. It is an important part of the process of thriving in whatever environment is available. And if you take an honest look at this earth, we don't evolve by cutting ourselves off from discomfort. We don't evolve by moving away or getting away from the things. Sometimes we need to, especially if it's abusive, but you know what I mean? If it's a situation where it's like, no, we're here, it's like part of how we evolve is adapting what we need to thrive no matter the circumstances. And that is one of the gifts that holding discomfort, that holding anger, that holding sadness can give us, is we learn to live with it. And we learn by observing, okay, it doesn't mean that by holding it, you just ignore it. It means you accept that that's how you feel. And then you open yourself up to observing why, because sometimes we need to observe. When you observe what's making you angry about a situation, it often gives you a clue into what your values are. And sometimes by watching people do the wrong thing or the corrupt thing, you learn about your ability to do the right thing or the sustainable thing or the restorative thing. That that's part of what evolution is. Maybe this feeling of discomfort that you have in the moment isn't something you can act on right now, but maybe it's a cycle of growth you're meant to go through. Maybe it's something that you're meant to learn so that you can build something bigger, because often what we have to deal with one on one or in our work circles or family circles could be a part of our larger mission. Like in my case, I wrote my whole She Deaths reflection book because I had to learn to live with a psychotic narcissist who was trying to destroy me and my life at every turn. It wasn't a situation I could escape no matter, well, I did, and that some boundaries were set, but like I can't just make this person go away no matter how bad I want to. I can't. And I can't lose the people that I love. So I have to learn to live with it. Well, what that did by just allowing myself to sit with that is it created my ability to write a book about healing narcissism in the US, about restoring things, about creating an environment where that kind of behavior can't thrive, creating a place where we no longer grow toxic things like that, where those weeds, because that's what narcissism is. The narcissistic people, they're weeds. Well, what if we create a garden where they can't grow, where they can't do parasitic things anymore? So in sitting with, this discomfort and being frustrated with the systems that aren't intervening, it's taught me how to intervene. I can't remember if I've told you this or not, but I have another recurring dream, like in addition to my recurring dreams about teaching and things like that. I have a recurring dream where something dangerous is happening, like children are in danger, or I'm in danger, or some sort of sexual assault or something is happening. And I'll try to call the police or I'll try to report it. And the authority figures are just very indifferent to what's going on. They don't care. They don't see the emergency. They don't intervene. Meanwhile, I'm like, stop it. Look at this person. They're hurting the kids or whatever it is. And the authority figure's just doing nothing. And I keep having this dream over and over again. And it's trying to tell me something. It's trying to clear my dependence or expectation that these authority figures are going to do what they say they're going to do. And it's meant to teach me what I can do despite them. So sometimes these situations that are incredibly frustrating, where there's clear corruption going on, or where People aren't valuing the things they should value, like the safety of children, or like the safety of women, or just the general integrity of all human beings. Maybe you're in that situation because you're one of the people meant to change it. And like I said, that change looks messy. In my interview with Graham, when he started talking about them, right? Like I worried maybe that would be confusing for people when he started talking about, other universes and people, kind of bringing some of the chaos from their universe to this universe. At first, I thought, oh, maybe people won't quite understand that. And I'm not saying I fully believe that's the case. I do think it could be possible. I do think that perhaps Graham did tap into some knowledge of other universes that he is bringing here. But one thing that his bringing up, these other consciousness causing some of the chaos on Earth, one thing that brought up for me, oh, okay. There's a car alarm going off and I worry that you can hear it. So I'm going to get up for the third time in this video. Oh, nope, it stopped. I'm not going to get up. I was going to shut my window. So never mind. Problem solved. One thing that insight opened me up to is the possibility that, well, it opened me up to kind of maybe confirming that there are more spiritual forces at work than we realize. That we're really not alone. You know what I mean? Like, and if you think about it, a lot of the like extraterrestrial activity has been hidden from us, right? Like the government is just now bringing up a lot of the alien activity that it was trying to hide. There's so many stories of people seeing spirits or having these UFO encounters that are kind of just undeniable. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's really not all that wild to imagine that there could be beings from other universes whose energy is influencing ours. I mean, it's been very clear that other beings end up on our Earth and that these spirits are right next to us. I know that I show you this photo a lot, but it's interesting, right? So look at that shadow. It's right there. It almost looks like it's in me a little bit. It's right there. That wasn't totally me. That was a spirit and it was right there, you know. I'm trying to say that part of this evolutionary cycle is also opening our minds to things that seem messy or strange, or things where we maybe don't have a logical conclusion of how it all works, how it happened. I think for our world to get better and for us to use all these feelings of discomfort and confusion and not having just straight up answers, I think it can contribute to our evolution by just accepting that there are other energies at work that are creating the world that we're in, and we can work with those energies beyond just the idea that it's like, okay, ooh, that house is haunted. Ooh, let's go see if we can find a ghost. Like, no, the spirits are around for a reason. And it's not just evil. There's angels. There's people who study the Fey realm and how that impacts things. Like I had an empty package of a fairy book delivered on my doorstep. Like a package came that was said to have a fairy book that wasn't actually in it. Okay? Listen to my interview with Varla Ventura. We talk all about it because it was her book that I was ordering and I had already received it. And then another phantom package arrived on my doorstep with nothing in it, but it said the fairy book was in it. And she's like, oh, you got a fairy book. And for me, I didn't just dismiss that as, oh, that's weird or, oh, that's creepy or, ooh, haunted fairies. No, I took it as, hey, the fairies are trying to tell me something. Oh, they want me to start writing about them. And sure enough, I did. Spiritual encounters are an invitation. This shadow picture was an invitation for me to look at my nature. So part of how we evolve is accepting that maybe there's some spiritual influences. Although I'm still processing what Graham said about other universes and existences and things like that, it's like, well, I think it's fair to acknowledge that perhaps spiritual influences are why people are the way they are. Like I briefly dipped into John Edwards' book that he wrote with an FBI agent called Chasing Evil. As I mentioned, I had to get rid of it because it was too murdery and I couldn't hold that. But as they're talking about this murderer that they took down, there's, you know, descriptions of him as like foaming at the mouth and having this very high-pitched, creepy voice. And I can tell you from my own experience with a particular psychotic person, I've heard her scream and it's not a human sound. It's creepy. So I think that part of how we heal this world is working with the spirits again, working with the good ones, or working with the ones who are trying to create something restorative and recognizing that maybe part of our battle against this corruption is spiritual. I don't know how we can deny that we're spiritual beings. It's easy for people to accept all the wild shit in the Bible, about like God sending the flood and Noah gathering animals and going on a boat, or like Satan torturing Job. It's easy for people to accept stories like that, but somehow, maybe somebody bringing something up about other universes and their evil influence, well, it's like, oh no, that's a conspiracy theory. Maybe not. I'm going to even go so far as to say, look at how popular the Avengers is. Okay. Now, I know there's lots of reasons for that, like superheroes and cool action scenes and all the money they poured into making those movies look cool. But what is the theme of a lot of the Marvel movies that have come out? Multiverses, alternate universes. Maybe despite the pop culture thing, people are beginning to recognize that, oh, yeah, there is a multiverse out there. Maybe the reason people are so fascinated by that, because again, if you look at especially the Marvel movies that have come out in the last several years, they're all focused on the multiverse. The original Into the Spider-Verse animated movie that came out with the Miles version of Spider-Man was wildly successful. The concept that there could be multiple Spider-Mans from multiple universes. And then after that, they did that with the Tom Holland one, right? Where they brought back the nostalgia of the Tobey Maguire and the Andrew Garfield, Spider-Mans. And then, you look at the whole Avengers thing with Thanos and going back in time. I mean, I don't think it's just the pop culture trend. I think part of the reason people were drawn to those movies is because there's a part of us that remembers that we're not alone, that there are other influences, that we are actually a part of it too. Because humanity didn't always exist on this earth. There were millions, billions of years where there were no humans, but our consciousness came from somewhere into these bodies. So thank you for sticking with me for this long. I know these are a lot of big things I'm covering, but I just had to share them with you. You know, maybe you just holding on to your anger for a little bit could be as big as healing the universe. But it really is all connected, These small feelings that we have in our little corner of the world are connected to the world at large. And if there's one point that I want to make to you, it's that who you are and what you hold does impact the collective, meaning other humans, meaning the spiritual realm. And perhaps this is an invitation to allow the spirits to help you. Because one thing that's for sure helped me hold these feelings of discomfort is engaging with them. And the way that I do that is I listen, right? I learn more about my psychic gifts. There's a million psychics out there who can help you tune in to the different psychic gifts that you have. Okay, the book's not over there, but I'll find the book and I'll put it in the show notes. There's one that's really good at just kind of introducing you to psychic gifts, because we all do have them. It's just that some people are maybe more tuned in than others. So one way that you could start to maybe work with spirits in a more collaborative fashion is to read books written by, experts who can teach you how to do it safely. So you're not tapping into some evil, and here's the thing, trust your gut. Most of us know when we're fucking with something dangerous. So I'm not by any means telling you to pull out your Ouija board and summon Satan. Don't fucking do that. But like, recognize that there's more spirits out there than just evil. that people look for, that there are angels, there are spirits of light, there are things that move and help things grow. Actually, William Bloom, I brought him up a million times. He's another great resource for just learning to work with collaboratively with spirits in all settings. I loved his work, and it's very like understandable. So just search William Bloom, and he writes about working with these things. So a good way to get started is to just explore more to the spiritual world than just the evil that's out there, the ghost stories. Because I'm bringing all of this up because I think engaging with the spirits again in a healthy way is part of how we're going to heal this world. Because I think we also need to recognize that maybe these corrupt leaders who are running things might also not be alone. There might be some evil that's giving them some power or numbing them to some of their actions. I think we need to start acknowledging some of this. So I don't want to overwhelm you with tasks. That's not my goal at all. But I just want to encourage you to, if there's a situation that's causing you discomfort, maybe you just need to hold on to it and see who you become because you held on to it. Allow yourself the opportunity to evolve because you held it and because you learned from it and because you observed a way to create something that's done with more compassion. And it doesn't happen overnight. I want a compassionate world where everyone's equal, but I am not in a position to do that for everybody yet. But I am in a position to continue to hold my frustration and discomfort with it and continue to learn, to take steps toward evolution, towards creating a world where we can live more compassionately and equally. Because every feeling you have is for a reason. There is something that you're meant to do with it, even if it doesn't mean acting on it right away. Maybe it's something you're meant to hold and learn from for a while. Thank you for joining me on this. And please go listen to, my interview with Graham. He really, really provided some interesting insights. And, go listen to my old episodes if you want. What's kind of cool about this shadow one is that even my understanding of what that shadow meant evolved, like if you go to the original episode called The Shadow and listen to that, my interpretation of it at the time, because I did that episode shortly after the encounter happened, is different than another shadow episode I put out a few weeks ago. That one is called Who is Your Spirit Calling You to Be? And it doesn't mean that any, interpretation was wrong. It just means that my perspective on this shadow encounter continued to evolve, that I could develop a deeper and stronger understanding by using everything that I learned from it. Because that is how we evolve. We continue to observe something, we hold something, we allow nature, spirits, our fellow humans, our own self to teach us. And so share this episode. There's someone who needs to hear it. Follow me, reach out to me, email me if there's something you want me to cover. I always put my website, in the description. So you should do that. And speaking of Marvel, I think I've talked about this before. I wrote a story called Widow's Soul. It's based on the idea that Black Widow actually survived and woke up in the soul world after she sacrificed herself. And I love that story so much. It includes Ultron eating a s'more. So if that's not enough to draw you in, Black Widow surviving and maybe even having a little like fight scene, but also team up with Gamora, who also had to sacrifice herself, according to the male interpretation of how that story should go. Anyway, it's a really good story and you can read it for free on my website. So I'm going to link that too. But in the meantime, before you read that, thanks for coming.